Now take that laundromat and stretch it into a survival test. Two people need the same basic things: food, work, sleep, medical care. Simple enough, right? But one person has savings, a car, insurance, a quiet room, a bill that can sit there until Friday without causing panic. The other person has no cushion, so the same task weighs more. Getting to work takes more planning. Buying food takes more time. Fixing a tooth takes more fear. Even sleeping takes more negotiation, more noise, more worry. More math done in the dark. That's the hidden part of poverty. Not just an empty wallet, a crowded mind. Researchers studying scarcity have found that when people are forced to manage constant shortage, attention itself gets captured. Your brain keeps circling the same questions. What can wait? What breaks first? What happens if I choose wrong? Before poverty becomes a financial crisis, it becomes a tax on the mind. Imagine a small settlement around 12,000 years ago. Not a city yet, not an empire, not some great monument carved into history. Something more fragile. A few families living near stored grain, small fields, fenced animals, and skies that could change their lives without asking permission. For most of human existence, survival leaned on skill, memory, endurance, and the people who trusted you. Then storage changed the rules. Seeds could be saved. Food could be counted. Animals could be owned. For the first time, the future could be placed in a jar, tied to a post, guarded behind a fence. But if the future can be stored, it can also be taken away. Picture one family after a dry season. Their grain jars sit low. Their seed supply is damaged. Their goat dies. From the outside, it looks like they lost food. But wait, they lost far more than food. They lost bargaining power. They lost the gift they might have brought to a wedding. They lost the favor they could have traded with a neighbor. They lost the backup plan that could have carried them through the next bad season. That's the quiet birth of the poverty trap. When survival depends only on today, hunger is the danger. When survival depends on stored options, losing those options becomes a cliff. Not weakness, exposure. Not laziness. A missing buffer. A poor harvest didn't just empty the stomach. It shrank the future. Now jump forward to the modern city. A delivery worker wakes before sunrise and checks the weather before he even checks his own face in the mirror. Rain. Of course it's rain. His shoes are still damp from yesterday. His phone bill is due tonight. The map on his screen is bleeding red, traffic packed across the city like blocked arteries. And now he has to choose. The bus costs less, but the route takes 94 minutes if both transfers arrive when they're supposed to. A rideshare gets him there faster, but it swallows the money he planned to use for dinner. So what does he do? The obvious answer is take the cheap option. Easy. Except the cheap option has teeth. If the bus runs late, he misses the first delivery window. If he misses that window, the app lowers his priority. If his priority drops, tomorrow's work gets thinner before tomorrow even begins. So the cheaper route may cost him income. The faster route may cost him food. That's how poverty bends time. The rich can buy hours. The poor have to bargain with them. One person pays extra to save time. Another loses time to save money. It looks balanced from far away. It isn't. Every delay becomes a decision. Every decision drains attention. Every drained hour makes the next escape route harder to reach. Not because he's bad at planning, because he has to plan around cracks that wealth never sees. And that's the part people miss. The poor don't only lose money, they lose the hours needed to stop being poor. Hours are not soft. Hours are shelter, sleep, recovery. Hours are the invisible currency underneath every visible bill. Now listen to a different kind of trap. A mother feels a sharp pain in one tooth while she's packing lunch before work. She knows what it means. Of course she knows. But the dental bill is bigger than the money left after rent, food, transport, and the school shoes her child needs next week. So she waits. 1 day, then 3, then 2 weeks. The pain becomes part of the background. A pulse in the jaw, a metal taste, a headache that follows her into work and sits beside her through the shift. Then the tooth gets infected. Now the problem that could have stayed small becomes an emergency. She misses a shift. She loses pay. She buys antibiotics or painkillers or both. The bill grows because the delay grew. Wait, why would anyone delay care if delay makes care worse? Because poverty turns the future into collateral. Your body pays today's bill with tomorrow's strength. And the ancient body was never built for this. The nervous system is brilliant at short danger. A snake in the grass, a stranger at the edge of camp, a child too close to fire, heart up, muscles ready, attention sharp. But modern poverty does something stranger. It doesn't strike once. It hums. It becomes rent due, tooth pain, school forms, overdue fees, empty gas tanks, unread emails, and the fear that one more thing will break before you can catch your breath. So the body keeps borrowing from tomorrow to survive today. Not one crisis, a climate, not one alarm, a background siren. And inside that siren, the human body makes decisions it may regret later, because biology cares first about the next hour. A body under scarcity is not irrational. It is negotiating with danger. Now move to a working-class neighborhood in the 1930s. A tenant needs money before payday, not for luxury, for coal, bread, medicine, rent. He owns no house, no land, no savings account large enough to make a bank clerk lean forward with respect. So where does he go? Maybe to the shopkeeper who lets families buy on credit? Maybe to a cousin who may help but will remember. Maybe to a lender whose interest sounds small until the weeks start piling up. This is the trust trap. When you have assets, strangers can trust the asset. When you don't, strangers have to decide whether they trust you. And personal trust is expensive. It comes with shame. It comes with favors. It comes with gossip, obligation, and the invisible price of being seen as risky. A wealthy person can walk into an office and borrow against property. A poor person may have to borrow against reputation. Same need, different price. If you're still with me, hit subscribe because the next part changes how you see every bill on your table. Because a bill is not only a request for money, it is a test of timing, a test of trust, a test of whether your past has left you enough room to survive your present. In the 1930s, a late rent payment could mean a landlord's warning, a neighbor's judgment, a shopkeeper's colder face. Today, the names have changed. Credit score, deposit, overdraft, late fee, security hold. But the engine is familiar. No buffer means more suspicion. More suspicion means worse terms. Worse terms mean the next emergency starts closer to the edge. And that is the cruel geometry of poverty. The less you have behind you, the more the world charges you to move forward. Trust has a price. But this is where the story has to turn carefully. Because the point is not that poor people make bad decisions, and it is not that wealthy people are somehow wiser, calmer, cleaner, or born with better judgment. That version is too convenient. A person with money can forget a bill, miss a deadline, buy the wrong thing, make a stupid choice after a brutal week. And the system can absorb the mistake. A late fee lands, but savings catch it. A car breaks, but insurance softens the hit. A sick day comes, but paid leave covers the gap. Now hand that same mistake to someone with no margin. The bill becomes a penalty. The penalty becomes a delay. The delay becomes another cost. Same human error, different impact. So no, this is not a morality test. Not character. Margin. And that brings us to the answer. Not the easy answer, the real one. The easy answer says poverty comes from laziness. But plenty of poor people work until their backs ache, their feet burn, and their bodies start sending warnings they cannot afford to hear. The easy answer says poverty comes from poor discipline. But discipline gets harder when every hour already belongs to someone else. The easy answer says poverty comes from not knowing how to manage money. But how do you manage money that disappears before it becomes a choice? Wait, maybe the trap is not one bad decision. Maybe the trap is what happens when every decision gets smaller. No money creates no time. No time creates rushed choices. Rushed choices create penalties. Penalties make the future smaller. And a smaller future gives you fewer ways to dodge the next penalty when it arrives. That is the loop. The poverty trap does not always look like a cage. Sometimes it looks like a bus schedule. Sometimes it looks like a cracked tooth. Sometimes it looks like a $35 fee attached to a $6 problem. And the cruel part is this from the outside. Every step can look personal. Why didn't they plan better? Why didn't they save more? Why didn't they leave sooner? But from the inside, the question sounds different. How do you build a ladder while using both hands to hold up the floor? That is the trap. Not one bad choice. A system that makes every choice smaller. Now bring it closer. Imagine your phone screen breaks on a Monday morning, not destroyed, just cracked enough that every message becomes harder to read. Every notification takes longer. Every small task starts to scrape against your patience. Your bank account is low. Your boss calls. Your rent is due in 4 days. And suddenly, the number in your wallet decides what kind of person you are allowed to be. Calm, if you have a buffer. Panicked, if you do not. Patient, if the repair is simple. Sharp, distracted, ashamed. If one cracked screen can threaten the whole week, that is the part we prefer not to look at for too long. You are not separate from the trap. You may just be protected by cushions you rarely notice. A savings account. A spare key. A parent who can send money. A friend with a car. A job that forgives one bad morning. Take away 2 or 3 of those, and your personality may start to look different from the outside. Not because your soul changed, because your room to move changed. A person under pressure is not a different species. They are you with fewer exits. And once you see that, poverty stops looking like a failure of imagination. It starts looking like imagination trapped inside a smaller map. So return to that laundromat at 11:47 p.m. The machine still wants $1 more. The phone is still at 3%. The last bus is still getting ready to leave. And the person standing there is not facing one problem. They are facing a chain. Coins become time. Time becomes transport. Transport becomes work. Work becomes rent. Rent becomes sleep. Sleep becomes patience. And patience becomes the difference between surviving tomorrow and breaking tonight. Across millions of species, hunger is simple. Find food, escape danger. Rest when you can. But humans did something stranger. We turned food, shelter, health, time, and trust into prices. Then we built systems so complex that a life could be trapped not by one disaster, but by the missing space after it. Wait, maybe poverty is not the absence of effort. Maybe poverty is what happens when recovery disappears. No room for the missed bus. No room for the cracked tooth. No room for the late paycheck. No room to be human and imperfect. That is why the smallest fee can feel so heavy. It is carrying the future inside it.